The message came through all frequencies, loud and clear. A deep, commanding voice echoed across the galaxy. Earth will surrender within 3 solar days. Kneel before the Empire or be turned to. The words weren't just a threat. They were a promise. The Galactic Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. No one had ever stood against them and won. To most, resistance was pointless. But Earth was not like most worlds. Inside Earth's military command base, deep beneath the mountains, officers and generals sat in silence. The room was filled with tension. Red lights flashed slowly. Everyone knew what was coming. Still, they waited for someone to speak first. General Holt stood up. His voice was low and firm. We either surrender or we fight. And if we fight, we must hit them where it hurts. No begging. No halfway. Across the table, a young officer named Ray leaned forward. He had no rank as high as the generals, but his calm thinking had earned respect. He studied the data projected in front of him, massive Empire fleets, thousands of warships, powerful cannons, and advanced armor. Earth didn't have that kind of power. But it had something else. They expect us to bow, Ray said. That's their first mistake. The room turned quiet again. Then, slowly, heads began to nod. We'll activate Operation Firestorm. Holt said. Everyone stood. Silent agreement. No more talk of surrender. At that moment, encrypted signals shot across Earth's military satellites. All units were told to stand by. Hidden warships, cloaked drones, orbital cannons, and stealth. Fighters all powered up quietly, with no warning. Deep in space, near Mars, an old mining ship opened to reveal a fleet of black warships. They vanished into faster-than-light jump space. Meanwhile, Earth's news stations only reported that the government was in negotiations. The people were told to stay calm. They did. But many had already guessed the truth. Humanity had never liked bullies, and the Empire had become the biggest bully in the galaxy. In a small training base near Jupiter's moon, Ganymede. A commander named Mira stood on a dark steel platform, looking at her pilots. Their ships were light, fast, and deadly. She smiled coldly. Pilots, she said, the Empire gave us 3 days. Let's show them we only need 1. The message came again from the Empire, this time more aggressive. You have 1 day left. Do not test us. Earth cannot survive our fire. Earth said nothing. That silence scared the Empire more than any weapon. On the second day, just hours before the deadline, 3 of the Empire's cruisers exploded at the edge of Earth's solar system. No warnings, no signals, just bright flashes in the void of space. The explosions were followed by complete darkness. Communications from that area vanished. The Empire's admiral, sitting aboard a massive command ship called the Crown, slammed his fist on the table. Who fired first? He barked. No record of any launch, his officer said. It's like the ships exploded from inside. That wasn't possible. Not in the way they believed war should be fought. But Earth wasn't playing by their rules. At the exact same moment, 20 human warships exited warp behind a supply. Lying in the outer rim, they moved like shadows, fast and silent. Fuel depots burned. Cargo ships vanished. And by the time the Empire responded, the humans were gone. They didn't stay to fight. They struck and disappeared. Ray watched the operation. Logs back on Earth, eyes steady. They're confused, he said. That's good. Let them wonder what else we're hiding. Earth wasn't hiding just weapons. It was hiding strategy, determination, and something the Empire didn't understand: rage born from freedom, and the will to never kneel. As the sun set over Earth's largest cities, people looked up at the sky. They didn't know all the details, but they knew something had changed. The stars seemed quieter, heavier. Because war had already begun, and Earth wasn't waiting anymore. Asterisk, the Empire's warships floated like giants above the moons of Saturn. They were powerful, covered in heavy armor, and armed with weapons strong, enough to destroy whole cities. To them, this was just another easy battle. They were wrong. In the darkness of space, Small human ships moved silently, hidden by advanced stealth technology. These weren't huge battleships. They were fast, sharp, and controlled by some of Earth's best pilots. The Empire had never seen anything like them. Commander Mira sat in the cockpit of her fighter, eyes calm and focused. Her squadron had been moving through the rings of Saturn using debris fields as cover. Every move was planned. Every second counted. Squadron, target confirmed. Mira said into intercoms. We go in quiet. No alarms, no survivors. The target was one of the Empire's main communication hubs, protected by 3 battle cruisers. The Empire thought no one could get close to it, Mira smiled. Within seconds, her team launched forward. The fighters split into pairs, dodging rocks, ice, and floating metal. They didn't fire missiles or lasers. They placed charges small but deadly bombs on key points of the enemy's hulls as the humans pulled away. The bombs exploded all at once. Boom. Boom, about 3 huge fireballs lit up the space near Saturn. The Empire ships didn't even have time to call for help. The communication station cracked in two and drifted silently. The Empire's admiral board. The Crown screamed in anger. How did they do this? Where were our sensors? They bypassed our scans. Their ships are too small, too fast. One of the officers answered, shaken. The admiral stared at the screen showing the destroyed station. He had seen many battles, but never had an enemy struck so hard and vanished so fast across the galaxy. Similar attacks were happening in a supply zone near the border of Empire space. Earth's drone fleet appeared out of nowhere, struck a fuel base, and jumped away in less than a minute. On a hidden moon station, human hackers broke into the Empire's network. They didn't steal data, they uploaded a virus. It disabled thousands of small Empire defense bots. They fell from the sky like dead flies. The Empire had sized Earth, had precision in the middle of it all. Ray watched every strike from the Earth Command Center. He moved markers across a digital map, tracking each success. He noticed something interesting. They're slow to react, he said. They don't understand how we think. General Holt nodded. Good, let's stay ahead. Time for Phase 2. Meanwhile, on a quiet asteroid near the edge of Empire territory, Mira's squadron refueled in silence. The ships were scratched, but their spirits were high. She walked past her pilots, patting a few on the shoulder. One of them asked, Ma'am, why are we not going for their big ships? Myra replied, because they expect that. We're not here to fight their war. We're here to end it. They all nodded at the same time, back on the Crown. The Admiral ordered the fleet to advance into human territory. He wanted revenge. He wanted blood. Hundreds of Empire ships began moving toward Earth's outer colonies, but it was too late. They were walking into a trap. Earth had placed hidden lines, cloaked turrets, and false signals along the route. As the Empire ships moved forward, they hit trap after trap. Explosions filled the void. Ships crashed into each other in the confusion. And human stealth units picked off survivors one by one. The Admiral growled. Where are they? Why won't they fight us directly? But humans weren't fighting to win medals. They were fighting to protect their people. They didn't need to be seen. They just needed to burn everything the Empire believed was safe. One signal finally reached Earth. From the Empire. What do you want? Why are you doing this? Ray stood in front of a comm screen. He didn't smile. He didn't shout. He simply said, You told us to kneel. You've got to check if we had fire. Then he ended the call. Far above Earth. Satellites captured the burning remains of the enemy's lead fleet drifting through space. The stars had begun to glow not from sunlight, but from the fury of a planet that refused to bow. Asterisk, the stars were quiet. But death moved in the silence. In a deep black of space. Earth's stealth fleet hunted without sound. These weren't large ships with heavy guns. They were sharp, thin, fast like knives in the dark. Each ship had a target. Each move was planned. The goal was clear: break the Empire's control, piece by piece. One of Earth's stealth teams entered a large asteroid field near a hidden Empire fuel depot. The place was protected by 3 long-range cannons and 6 patrol ships. No normal fleet would risk going near it, but humans didn't come with banners or horns. They came like shadows. Commander Mira's voice came through the comms. You know your roles. Quick and clean. Hit them and disappear. The pilots moved through the asteroid belt, using the rocks as cover. Their ships glided silently, so close to the surface they almost scraped the stone. No Empire radar could see them. One by one, they dropped small signal jammers onto the enemy ships. Then total silence. The Empire crews didn't even know they were blind. 30 seconds later, Earth's fighters unleashed laser bursts into the fuel tanks. The depot went up in flames. 2 patrol ships were destroyed before they knew they were under attack. The others tried to respond, but there was no signal, no backup, no warning. By the time Empire reinforcements arrived, the humans were already gone. Just vapor trails and wreckage left behind. Ray watched the live satellite feeds from Earth's control room. His screen showed multiple targets marked in red, all gone now. He leaned back and said quietly, "They still don't know where we are. They're guessing." General Holt smiled. "Let them guess." But the attacks weren't just random. Ray had found something deep inside stolen enemy data, weakness in the Empire's AI defense systems. The Empire had always relied on machine logic to predict war. It worked on most species, but humans were different, unpredictable, creative, and now Earth used that against them. Ray created false signals, sending fake troop movements into space. Empire I chased ghosts. Ships were sent to empty coordinates. Supply runs were delayed. Defenses were moved from key zones to useless locations. Earth was fighting with tricks, not just force. On a cold rock orbiting a red dwarf star, a human team placed EMP charges underneath an Empire transmission tower. They didn't stay. They didn't wait. The charges blew after they left, sending a shockwave through the region's command lines. Thousands of Empire drones stopped working instantly. Their metal shells fell from the skies on more than 5 worlds. An Empire general screamed through the comm system, "This is madness. They're not following the rules of war." Back on her ship, Mira heard that message. She replied calmly, "We don't follow your rules. We follow our survival." The Empire began to panic. They sent bigger ships, heavier patrols. They tightened their zones. But every time they moved one step forward, Earth was already 3 steps ahead. They were fighting shadows, and they were losing. Some Empire colonies started asking questions. Why couldn't the Empire stop Earth? How could one world outsmart 1,000? And most importantly, was the Empire still in control? Back at Earth Command, Ray pulled up the next phase of the war plan. On the screen, dozens of small markers blinked in space. He tapped on one near the Empire's core supply route. "This is where we break their back," he said. General Holt raised an eyebrow. "They'll protect it with everything they've got." Ray nodded. "That's fine. We'll take everything they've got." At the same time, Mira's fleet jumped into position near the route. The humans had placed deep space mines, cloak turrets, and dummy cargo ships that exploded when scanned. Within minutes, chaos exploded along the supply line. Empire ships crashed into traps. Engines failed. Whole sections of their fleet shut down. It was the biggest blow yet, and Earth hadn't lost a single soldier in the attack. For the first time in years, the Empire's war room went quiet. No plans, no answers, just silence. Because their enemy, the one they had ordered to kneel, was now tearing their empire without ever showing its full strength. The stars were no longer peaceful. They were burning. Asterisk. The Empire was bleeding. In less than 2 weeks. Earth had destroyed 12 fuel depots, cut off 4 major supply routes, and shut down thousands of drones. Empire patrols were lost, isolated, and too afraid to go dark. Their fleet couldn't even talk to itself. Entire systems fell quiet. No orders, no support, no rescue. But Earth didn't stop. It pushed harder. It was time for Operation Ember. At Earth Command. Ray stood before a holographic map. The lines drawn in red showed the outer Empire colonies, places once used to launch attacks on other species. Now they were Earth's next targets. We're not just defending anymore, Ray said to the High Council. We're going in. Genre? Holt looked at the map, then at Ray. You think we're ready? We've already broken their spine, Ray replied. Now we make sure they never walk again. Soon the operation was launched. Dozens of Earth's warships, led by Commander Mira, left their stations and moved straight into Empire space. They didn't sneak. They didn't hide. This time, they went in loud with lights, banners, and power. The message was clear. Earth isn't afraid. At the same time. Earth's people stood tall. Cities once under blackout now lit up in celebration. Families waved flags. Old veterans gave their medals to new soldiers. Even children helped. In the factories, building drones and printing supplies. Earth had become one machine. One force. News spread fast. On the moons of Arden. Empire soldiers dropped their weapons before Earth's troops landed on the frozen planet Vela. Citizens opened the gates and surrendered without a fight, whispering that Earth had come. Even Empire officers began to question their orders. One captain sent a message to the Emperor himself. We were told Earth would kneel. Why are we the ones on our knees? Back on the front lines, Mira's fleet approached an Empire command station in the Varn sector. This station controlled thousands of ships and had never been attacked. Until now. Engines ready. Weapons hot, Mira said over comms. Fire. At will. A wall of light filled space as Earth's fleet opened fire. The Empire responded, but their shots were slower, their aim weaker. Their sensors were jammed, their guidance corrupted by Earth's virus. Within 10 minutes, the command station was destroyed. Escape pods launched in every direction. Earth didn't chase. They weren't here to punish, they were here to end the war. Mira stood at the bridge window, watching the wreckage spin across the stars. We told them, she said softly. We won't kneel. Meanwhile, Ray received new intelligence. The Empire had started recalling fleets from far-off systems. They were pulling back, trying to protect their core worlds. It was the first true sign of fear. Ray turned to his team. This is it. They're moving backward. That means we move forward. On Earth, scientists revealed a final weapon. Hidden for years beneath Antarctica, a prototype solar pulse cannon was now ready. This cannon could fire energy strong enough to melt warships from across star systems. They called it Sunbreaker. It was powered up and loaded onto Earth's largest ship, the Horizon Flame, which now led the center of the fleet, with Sunbreaker at the front. The humans moved deeper into enemy space, colonies, past stations, past every border the Empire once drew in pride. The Empire couldn't stop them. They could only watch. And in every city they passed, Earth left behind peace, food, and rebuilding help. They didn't conquer. They freed. This was more than a war now. It was a turning point for the galaxy. Back at the Empire's palace, the Emperor stood in his golden chamber, watching reports flash across his screens. Ships lost, world silent, commanders defecting. He turned slowly to his advisors. They were supposed to kneel. No one answered because everyone in the room had seen the truth. Humanity had not just survived. Humanity had changed everything. And the stars, they weren't the Empire's anymore. They belonged to fire. Asterisk, the Empire's homeworld. Once called Zereth Prime, had never seen war on its soil. Protected by rings of battleships, energy shields, and high-orbit cannons. It was known as the unshakable jewel of the galaxy. But now it shook. The skies above Zereth Prime turned dark, not from storm clouds, but from the shadows of Earth's fleet. Hundreds of ships hovered in formation. Earth's colors glowed bright against the planet's green skies. Their engines hummed like thunder. The Empire's generals watched in fear from their towers. They had never prepared for this. Enemy had come this far. No invader had ever reached the heart of the Empire. Until now. On board the Horizon Flame, the massive command ship carrying Earth's new weapon, the Sunbreaker, Commander Myra stood at the edge of the bridge window, looking down at the planet. They said we'd never reach their throne, she said. Let's see if they still feel safe. Ray, now promoted and standing beside her, gave a short nod. Let's finish it. Nira raised her hand. All ships. Hold position. Deploy the message. Within seconds, satellites in orbit, relay stations on the surface, and every comm system. And the sector received a single broadcast. Mira's voice played across the stars. To the rulers of the Empire, this is Earth. You told us to kneel. Instead, we rose. You burned our colonies, took our people, and silenced our envoys. Now, we are here. Not for revenge, but for truth. The stars are no longer yours. The broadcast repeated in every major Empire language. On the streets of Zereth Prime, civilians stood still. Some wept. Some cheered. Others dropped their Empire flags and walked away in silence. Inside the throne palace, the Emperor watched the message play on a massive wall screen. His face was pale. His crown sat heavy on his head. A guard whispered, "Shall we return fire, my lord?" The Emperor didn't answer. He turned and walked into a hidden corridor behind his throne, a passage built for escape. Outside, the battle began, but it wasn't Earth who fired first. It was the Empire's last defense fleet. Over 300 ships launched into orbit to stop Earth's advance. They moved in tight formation, backed by massive plasma cannons and heavy fighters. Earth responded. With focus, Ray directed the fleet calmly. Split into 3 wings. Don't get drawn into their center. Let them follow. Let them stretch. Mira led the charge, weaving her ship through the first wave of fire. Earth's ships were lighter and more agile. Their pilots flew with experience, not just programming. Explosions lit the sky. Empire vessels broke formation under pressure. Human drones cut through their engines. Missile pods burst like firecrackers in the void. Then came the final blow. Ray gave the order, activate Sunbreaker. Onboard the Horizon Flame, the cannon charged. Its solar core glowed, fed by energy, pulled from a nearby star. In seconds, the ship's front panels opened wide. A giant beam of white light roared across space. It sliced through the Empire's flagship like it was paper. Silence followed. The rest of the Empire's ships paused, then began turning away. Some jumped to hyperspace. Others simply shut down and surrendered. Earth had won the skies. Back on the surface, Empire troops at the palace gates dropped their weapons as human marines landed. There was no more fight. The golden flags of the Empire were pulled down. Earth's banner was placed in the center court. Ray and Mira walked through the broken palace halls. No guards, no resistance. The throne room stood empty, its seat of power cold and abandoned. Mira walked up the stairs and stared at the empty throne. She didn't sit. Instead, she picked up the Emperor's crown that had been left behind. He ran, she said. He ordered us to kneel, and now he crawls in the dark. Ray stood beside her and took out a small silver flag, Penrith's symbol. He placed it on the throne. This isn't our seat, he said. We're not here to rule. We're here to remind them. Outside, Earth soldiers helped civilians. Food was handed out. Wounded were treated. No one was punished for surrendering. The galaxy had witnessed something no one thought possible. Earth had stood against the greatest power in the stars and made it fall. And now, where fear once ruled, hope began to rise. Asterisk. The fall of the Empire shook the galaxy. Across hundreds of star systems, people stared at their screens in silence. The great Empire, the one that ruled with fear, crushed resistance, and silenced voices was no more. Earth had done the impossible. Not with numbers, not with size, but with fire, precision, and the unbreakable will to never kneel. The victory was just the beginning. Back on Earth, cities lit up with joy. Streets were filled with celebration. For the first time in decades, there was peace. Children danced. Veterans cried. Families hugged. Billions looked up at the stars, knowing they were finally free from the shadow of war. Inside the Earth Council chamber, Ray stood in front of a table filled with reports. General Holt looked at him and asked, "What's next?" Ray tapped the table, zooming in on a galaxy map. Now we rebuild. But it wouldn't be easy. Some planets were still under the old ways. Some Empire officers had gone into hiding, hoping to restart the war. Others refused to believe Earth had won. And, worst of all, many systems were starving cut off from help. For years, Mira, now wearing the black and silver uniform of Earth's new Peace Guard, joined Ray. "We need to send food, medicine, and help," she said. "Not more ships. Let the galaxy know we didn't come to conquer. We came to heal." Ray agreed. Within days, Earth began sending out support fleets. Cargo ships filled with supplies launched across the stars. Engineers arrived to rebuild schools and hospitals. Doctors treated the sick in places where Empire care had never reached. Instead of walls, Earth built bridges, and something strange began to happen. Empire worlds that once feared humans now welcomed them. On a desert colony once ruled by an iron-fisted governor, children waved Earth flags as relief teams arrived. On an icy moon where rebels once hid in caves, both sides of the Civil War dropped their weapons and joined hands. In one deep space station. A former Empire admiral walked up to Mira and gave her his broken medal. "I fought against you," he said. "But I want my grandchildren to grow up in your world, not the one I helped build." She accepted the medal, not in pride but in peace. Meanwhile, the Galactic Assembly, a council of surviving species and governments, called a historic meeting. They invited Ray and Mira to speak. Ray stood before a crowd that once ignored Earth. Now, every eye was locked on him. He didn't shout. He didn't brag. He simply said, "We didn't start this war. We didn't ask for power, but we were told to kneel. And we knew that if we did, we would never rise again. So we stood. For ourselves. For every world that couldn't. And for the future." The hall echoed with applause. Even former Empire ambassadors stood in silence. Heads bowed. Later that night, Mira sat alone on a balcony overlooking the assembly. Lights from dozens of ships blinked in the sky above. Ray joined her. "Tired?" he asked. "Not yet," she said, smiling slightly. "There's still more work." Ray looked out at the stars. They used to say humans didn't belong out there, that we were too new, too wild, too broken. Myra nodded. "We were, but we changed. And maybe the galaxy will too." Back on Earth, a statue was built in the middle of Unity Square. It showed a human figure standing tall, reaching one hand to the stars and the other holding a broken chain. Around the base were words in many languages. They ordered us to kneel. We chose to rise. People came from all over to see it. Not just humans, but aliens, refugees, survivors. They didn't come to honor war. They came to honor courage. The fire Earth lit wasn't just the fire of weapons. It was the fire of change. The fire of truth. The fire that burned away the lies of an empire. And in that fire, a new galaxy began to form. One that no longer bowed to fear. Years passed. The stars that once burned with war now glowed with hope. Planets once ruled by fear were rebuilding, slowly but surely. The galaxy was still scarred, but healing. At the center of this new peace was Earth. No longer seen as a backwater planet or a wild world. Earth now stood as the guiding force of a united galaxy. Not because it had the strongest fleet, but because it had shown the most heart. And it all began when they refused to kneel. In a bright council hall floating above Jupiter. Leaders from hundreds of systems gathered. The Galactic Union, rebuilt, reformed, and free from the Empire, was meeting to elect its first Joint Command Council. At the top of the list were two names. Ray sat in a simple black suit. Not wearing medals or honors, though he had earned many. He watched quietly as votes were cast, worlds speaking as equals. When the results came in, there was no celebration, just quiet respect. He had been chosen as the Union's chief of defense. Across the chamber, Myra stood in uniform, now older, but still sharp-eyed. She had been named commander of the Galactic Peace Fleet, a force not of war, but of protection. Together they stood on the main platform, side by side, as thousands applauded. The flags of many species waved behind them. Mira stepped forward. First, we were told we didn't belong in the stars, she said. That humans were too new, too wild, too weak. But we didn't fight to prove we were better. We fought because we believed no one should be crushed for being different. Ray spoke next. We lit the stars on fire to defend the free. And now we keep that fire as a light to guide us, not burn us. The Union swore to build a new galaxy, one of fairness, truth, and unity. No more empires. No more chains. Far away on Earth itself, life had changed. The War Memorial Tower stood, tall in the center of New Geneva. At its top was a glass chamber filled with items from the Long War. A piece of the first stealth fighter, Myra's old pilot badge, and the broken crown of the fallen empire. Each item told a story. Visitors came from across the galaxy to see it. In one corner, a little girl from a desert moon stared at the crown. Her father explained, "That belonged to the ones who ruled us with fear." She asked, "And who took it away?" He smiled gently. "People who were told to kneel, but stood instead." Near the coast, Ray walked a quiet path lined with solar. Trees, their glowing leaves swaying in the wind. He no longer carried command tablets or war rank. He simply watched. He passed a classroom where children of all species learned side by side. They weren't just learning math or science. They were learning history, the truth of what happened, not just about how Earth won, but why it had to fight in the first place. Back in orbit, Mira led training exercises with new recruits. Her students included humans, aliens, and hybrids. Some came from old Empire worlds. Others were born during the war. She taught them to fly, to think. But most of all, she taught them why they serve one day. As the sun rose over the clouds, Mira and Ray stood together once more, watching Earth from above. "She's still beautiful," Mira said, nodding toward the blue and white planet below. Ray smiled. "And now she's not alone." They stood in silence, surrounded by ships that no longer carried only weapons, but tools to explore, to build, to heal, because Earth had lit the stars on fire not to conquer, but to show that even in the darkest galaxy, one spark of courage could change everything. And now, the stars were lit with a new kind of fire, the fire of freedom. The fire of unity. The fire of humanity.